Good evening, everyone. I'm Deputy Mayor Ed Barr. I'll be opening up the meeting for Mayor Palumbo, who is currently in the air right now. He's on his way back from a pharmacy meeting out in San Diego for the Board of Pharmacy. So we expect him here sometime during the meeting. So with that said, with the open meeting law, in compliance with the open public meeting law, I wish to state that on March 27th, 2015, the notice of this meeting of the Upper Township Committee was posted on the official Township bulletin board, mailed to the Cape County Gazette, the Atlantic City Press, the Ocean City Sentinel-Ledger, the Herald Times, and filed with the Township Clerk. Tonight's meeting is being video recorded up until the closed session portion of this meeting and will be available on Upper Township Channel 97 and on the Upper Township website. I hereby direct that this announcement be made a part of the minutes of this meeting. Mayor, second?
Second.
Okay, we're going to do the flag salute, and we have some fine young men out there in our audience, which are our Cub Scouts, and they just happen to be proceeding on to the Boy Scouts with their Hour of Light. So, gentlemen, if you would you come up, please? We're going to have you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Why don't you come on up here?
Come around this way.
And would everybody please stand? And if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you remain up here, gentlemen, turn around, face the audience. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mr. Coggins?
Here.
Mr. Pearson?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
And Mayor Palumbo is absent at the moment.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 9th, 2015, regular minutes and closed session minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 4 in favor.
Thank you, Barb. Okay, as I said, we have some young men up here from the Boy Scout troop. And last meeting we passed, I have a resolution in the name of these fine young men for their completion of the and receiving of the what was it, the Hour of Light, and I believe Jeff, you have some background in this. Could you elaborate on it?
Yes, I had the opportunity to go to their blue and gold dinner the other evening, and it was well done, well attended. The food was excellent, gentlemen. I know you didn't prepare it, but the food was very good. I enjoyed the time and the camaraderie with the parents that I was there. This is the last step. There are 7 steps from scouting, Cub Scouts, into Eagle Scout. And this is the last step. It's new. It was only created in around 1974-75 timeframe, long after I was a Cub Scout. And it's the threshold of taking a young man and starting to bring him into Scouts, the Boy Scout side of the house. And it's a wonderful achievement for these young men to do, to achieve, and I'm very proud of them. And it's their first step in scouting to become an Eagle Scout, which is the rank that they should be looking forward to in the very long future, which you have to complete around your 18th birthday, correct, gentlemen? Eagle Scouts? So let's hope these are all future Eagle Scouts up here, man. Good.
And without any further ado, I'll read off the resolution. Whereas the Scouts of Cub Scout Pack 79, Joey Brace, Sonny DeFranco, Nicholas George, Travis Koches, Christopher Lemon, William McLeese, Stephen Scales, and Evan Troxel have recently achieved the Hour of Light Award, which is the highest level of advancement for a Cub Scout. And whereas the Scouts of Cub Pack 79 have completed numerous tasks involving citizenship, outdoorsmanship, engineering skills, communication skills, and fitness, as well as participated in the annual food drive and community cleanup to satisfy the requirements of the Arrow of Light Award. And whereas the Township of Upper wishes to acknowledge this outstanding accomplishment, and now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of Upper Township in the County of Cape May and State of New Jersey as follows. Resolved that this Township Committee extends its sincere congratulations to these graduating Cub Scouts on the occasion of their receiving the Arrow of Light Award and commends them for this outstanding accomplishment, and is furthermore resolved that the Township Committee extends its congratulations and best wishes to their parents, family, and friends on this happy occasion, and it is further resolved that the Township Committee also extends its congratulations and appreciation to the den leaders, Kathleen DeFranco. Kathleen, you here? You want to come on up, please? And Debbie Brace. Debbie, you here? Come on up, Deb.
Come on up.
And others who give so freely and generously of their time for the benefit of our youth. Thank you very much. Nicholas George? Travis? Chris? William? Stephen? Thank you very much. We'll get behind you. Punch in there like that. There you go. They're almost taller than me. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time we'll take the report of the governing bodies. Barb?
I just have one item. I just wanted to remind everyone that we will be closed on Friday, this Friday, April 3rd, in observance of Good Friday. We'll reopen again on Monday. If your trash and recycling collection day falls on Friday, only your household trash will be collected on Monday. And to please hold your recyclables for the following week. And just wanted to wish everybody a happy Easter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything, Dan?
Yes. Earlier this month, there was a decision by the New Jersey Supreme Court regarding the COA laws. It had been quite some time since COA acted on any applications that were made for substantive certification. To give a background, the township does have an application with COA, but because of the failure, I guess, for the legislature of COA to come up with a final third round rules, the court finally came in and gave a mechanism, or created a mechanism to have the municipal plans reviewed. Essentially what the court said was that the plans will be reviewed by the courts unless and until the state legislature of COA correct the problem. What that means is 90 days, I think it was March 10th, was the date that the decision was made. So 90 days after that, there will be 30 days for municipalities that had plans submitted to COA to file, to continue to get the protection of what they call a builder's remedy suit. If you don't have the protection of having an approved COA plan, an affordable housing plan, a builder can come in and say you don't have one, and file suit against the town and bypass local zoning. For example, years ago, Upper Township did have exposure to that degree before it had a housing plan, and there was a suit filed. I think it was hundreds of units, single-family unit or residential units, not single family, but residential units were proposed. The suit was defeated for various reasons. But bottom line is, shortly after that, Upper did produce a plan and has had protection against those type of suits. In order to maintain that protection, we either have to file to get a declaratory judgment from the court, or if we are subject to one of those suits under this new ruling, it would be determined at that point whether our zoning complies with the legal requirements as determined by the court. The timeframes are important in that it's 90 days plus the 30 days to get a ruling from the court. But then because no one knows what their plan should be because they don't have the rules yet, it's understood because COA hadn't acted on the applications that were submitted years and years ago. The court says, we understand that, so we're going to give you another 5 months after that to update your plans and still retain the protection against a builder's remedy suit. It's still, at this point, we're still looking at it. I think there's a few things that we should take away from this. We may want to draft a resolution as requested by the New Jersey League of Municipalities, urging the legislature to address this issue so that we don't have to spend more money on filing declaratory judgment relief. And also, you may want to request that the planning board review our current plan and perhaps make recommendations or hire a planner to update our plan. For example, I can tell you that we have done additional affordable housing mechanisms in our zoning and planning since we submitted that plan that may give us credit for more affordable housing under whatever the new rules are that these courts will come up with or that the legislature will come up with. The bottom line is in the coming months, we probably should review and possibly take action along the lines outlined in the court decision. I can answer any questions. I don't have the answers as to what a judge might rule because the rules are open to interpretation now. They did give guidelines, but it's going to be on a case-by-case basis with each municipality as to whether a judge feels you've met the guidelines produced by the prior courts in terms of what they felt COA didn't do. So I just want to give you an update on that. I would suggest if you do want to adopt the resolution supporting the League's request, we should do that, just to go on record. For example, one of the things that affects Upper significantly is that there was one set of rules that was proposed, and actually the statute was vetoed by the governor's office, but that set of rules would have said we had zero requirement for new affordable housing. Mm-hmm. It would have taken into consideration the affordable housing we already have in the form of mobile homes and prefab homes. Under the prior rules, we were not granted credit for that. And there is a movement afoot to try and get credit for that. So that's something that obviously might come into play on future rules. Obviously, it was one set of proposals at one time. My understanding is that the governor's office didn't veto it for that reason. They vetoed it for other reasons. But that law didn't pass. So now we're back to hundreds of units that we had under the prior round requirements. So my point being is that we're not really sure where we'll end up. We think that our current plan is a good plan. It may need to be modified and updated based upon the case law that has transpired since the time that we submitted the plan. And that's why the planning board probably should look into having a planner review it, perhaps hire a planner and make sure that we're ready to go in a few months if we feel that that's the appropriate direction to take.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, that's all I have to report. We do have a number of items for closed session.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? No. So probably be advantageous for you to start on looking at drafting a resolution.
If you want to direct me to prepare a resolution or the clerk's office to prepare a resolution, I know the league has some sample resolutions. We may modify that somewhat.
We have to make a motion on that?
Yes. We'll put it on an agenda in the future.
I'll move it.
Second?
John, second.
Second. Take the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
You may want a motion in a second to request that the planning board review it and possibly consider hiring a planner to update our housing plan.
So
Absolutely.
moved. So moved.
Second? Take the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Paul, did you have anything to add on my review?
No, I think you summarized it pretty good, and that's where we stand at this point. I did make a report to the planning board, so they are aware, updated them similar to what Dan said. I also gave them copies of our current fair share plan and the court decision, just so that they could start getting prepared, because most of the board members were not on the board when we last prepared the housing plan back in 2008. So they know it's coming up on their radar, and they're preparing for it.
So, yeah. Anything, Paul?
Yeah, I have a few items. First, at the last meeting, we had discussed a proposal from Lomax Consulting Group to prepare a forestry management plan. If you remember, the township received a grant from the state to prepare a plan. We received a $3,000 grant. However, the proposal exceeded that grant allotment that we had. They went back and looked at the proposal and talked with me about what services the township could provide, in-kind services, to kind of accomplish some of those tasks. They looked at not attending some of the meetings, and I would make the presentation to the committee or the planning board as appropriate and help gather that information. So they brought their proposal down to $3,500, which would only be $500 out of pocket. I do have that funding in my engineering services O&E budget to cover that cost. If the committee would want to so look at, entertaining that revised proposal, we could, you could at this point, put that on a future agenda for an award.
Can I make a motion to get it on a future agenda at a cost to the township not to exceed $500?
I'll second.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you. Next, at the planning board meeting, there was an application on Butter Road, and some of the residents had concerns regarding drainage on the county road as it approaches Route 9. And I reported to the planning board that I was going to take a look at that with the county. I did have some conversations with the county engineer's office, and I have a future upcoming meeting. They do have that on their planning radar. They've gathered survey data already in that area, and they were looking at coming up with a plan to address the drainage issues in that area. I'm also meeting with the county road department later this week to look at the existing structures and make sure they're cleaned out and what kind of condition they're in to help facilitate the engineer's review of that. So I just want to report that back to committee as far as what we're doing for the residents there.
Is that an actual drainage problem with the road, or is it the elevation of the ground adjoining the road? That's the issue.
It's a little bit of both. What happens is, as you're coming, I'll say, from Stagecoach Road, heading towards Route 9 on Butter Road, as you approach that curve right before Route 9, there's a local low spot there, and it drains into the wetlands where several of the residents and this new application have gotten approvals from the DEP to fill wetlands. So anytime you start filling wetlands and not allowing that stormwater runoff to go into the wetlands, a little bit more is going to stay out on the road. But it also had problems, that system is a small conveyance system that runs it from that low spot out towards Route 9 to a swale that's along the abandoned railroad tracks. And then there's a state pipe that takes it under Route 9, which would head it out towards the parkway. So that, looking at that whole system, a lot of those pipes, especially the state pipe, is routinely clogged and requires frequent maintenance. So this is just, we're looking at the county first, and then I'll be approaching the state to see if they can up their maintenance and look at that. Then the last thing I had is, you've probably seen in the newspaper advertising in Atlantic City Press and the Sentinel Ledger regarding the FEMA advertising. The preliminary firms are actually going to start moving that process along, and they've started the 90-day comment period for the preliminary firms. That's a period where, even though they've, I'll say, probably over the last 6 or 7 months, allowed the towns to make comments and suggestions, this is the official 90-day comment period. So residents would have an opportunity to, make application through the township or directly to FEMA if they have engineering data that would support a change in
the preliminary firms, they would entertain them. Once FEMA has reviewed all the firms for a given municipality, after that 90-day and satisfied those, then at that point, FEMA could look at approving the firms, and then there's a statutory, I believe, another 90 days that the township would have to act on those approved firms and adopt them as the official firm maps for the township. So, I mean, at some point, we did discuss last year possibly holding an open house, even though the county had a county-wide open house with FEMA. We may want to look at having a little mini open house for our residents so they can come in and review the maps and ask any questions that they may have. So we may want to look at when we may want to hold that over the next 30 days. And that's all I had for today.
Okay. Barb?
I do have a couple things this evening. First, I want to announce that our tax assessor, Megan McAfee, is kind enough to be hosting another blood drive. It will be this Thursday, April 2nd, from 2 to 7 at the community center. Along with that request, generally, the Township Committee, we asked the Township Committee to, as our employees donate blood, they put their name in a pool, and one is selected to have a comp day off. So just asking for your permission again, if you so choose to grant that to one employee.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Barb?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Thank you. The second thing I have is a request by one of our deputy OEM directors to attend a conference in Atlantic City for 3 days, the beginning of May. It's not so much the cost, it's $110 for the cost, but our policy requires that we have Township Committee approval if it's anything more than 2 days. So just looking for your approval for that as well, if you choose.
I'll move that. That's a very important conference for them to attend, so I'll move it.
And I'll second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Thank you. The last thing I have is we received an application from Medicaid for our re-enrollment application. It's kind of a lengthy application. We're being assisted by our Cape Billing, our billing company, with the application. But it requires my signature, requires the chief of EMS, his signature as well. I have to gather information from a lot of our EMTs, certification information, and some other kind of sensitive information that all has to go into the application. So I just need your authorization for Jay and I to go ahead and sign this and move forward with the application for re-enrollment in Medicaid.
Okay, authorization.
Second.
Barb?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, John?
On the financial end of things, we do have public comment on our budget this evening as part of the
No.
public
No.
session.
No, not tonight.
No,
Next
next
meeting.
meeting.
Next meeting, pardon me, excuse me.
17th April.
13.
13th?
Also, I'd like to congratulate Barbara Young, Hobie Young, and the committee for the spring fling. They did a tremendous job out there at Amanda's Field. It was
Yes.
well attended, and I think everybody had a good time.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks, John. Since you mentioned the spring fling, it was a 3-hour huge success. We called it the spring fling insanity 3 hours with as many kids as we had. No idea how many people we had there. We estimated to be between 1,500 and 2,000 people in the park. Kid-wise, we went through 5,500 Easter eggs, and we could have used another 4,000 eggs. So it was very well attended, bigger than we ever thought it would be. And I think we hit it about 95% on the first try, just like we did with 4th of July and with the Fall Fest. So the compliments we got to the township as well as to the committees that were involved in this were exceptional. Very few areas that we need to work on. One of them is crowd control when we do the Easter egg hunt, because parents have a tendency of grabbing their kids and running across other kids to pick up eggs. So we will work on that for next year. I'd like to do a special thanks to my committee. And, these people have been working on this for 3 months. And the first one is Shauna Mulford. Shauna owns Let's Party Painters. She's a resident of the township. She's an expert in public affairs and putting on these kinds of productions. She supplied the face painters, cotton candy, all the characters we had. We had the Easter Bunny come in with the Tuckahoe Fire Company truck to start the thing off. We had a ribbon cutting ceremony to open the day off. She had Cinderella, she had Prince Charming, she had the fairy godmother, and we had the minions. So she did a phenomenal job on this, and I just want to go on record and saying special thanks to this special person in our township, because she just does it from the goodness of her heart. So along with Shauna, her mom, Jenny Mulford, Priscilla Yank Myers, Prissy's Ponies. Priscilla brings her ponies there. We had 4 or 5 going yesterday, and they did over 200 pony rides in 2.5 hours. So I'll give you an idea of the work they did. And I apologize, we had somebody from PTA, Jordan Silver, but I don't have her last name written down. Was a volunteer this year. Michelle McCauley-Barberi, Diana Tuhill, Barbara DiNardo, Mandy Walicki, Andy Eggert, he was our DJ. Of course, our clerk, Barb Young, was way beyond again with our help on that. And freeholder Chris Gabor. Chris talked to me extensively at the event and is willing to see what we can do, maybe even countywide, to get some reinforcements down here and help things move along. I'd also like to thank the Ocean City High School Student Council and the Upper Township Student Council, who took the time to stuff 5,500 Easter eggs and have them ready to go in age-appropriate eggs. We had 30 vendors set up yesterday, including food, crafts. We had a nursery stock set up, and also the Cub Scouts. They donated their time to clean the entire park up, and I went back today, and it was spotless. So they all did a fantastic job on this. And I want to thank Ed Barr. He has become my cohort with everything we do with recreation for the township, and Ed's support, again, has been phenomenal. And Ed, thank you again from the committee and myself.
Thank you. Anytime.
We also did, I don't know if I said before, 287 face paintings. We did this with a lot of this with sponsorship money from our local businesses, and it enabled us to keep the cost down for all the kids. So everything we did for the kids was $1. $1 pony rides, $1 games, $1 face painting. Without the sponsorships, it would be $3 or $4 a kid for each thing. So, we wanted to say thank you to all the sponsors that we had. We feel like we're starting to drain them because we are hitting them for event after event after event. So we need to find other ways to try to fund some of this and take the pressure off of the local businesses. I think there was one other thing with that. We do need to look in a way to take checks in, because any money we have left over from this, we want to have it earmarked for Amanda's Field for future improvements. So, Barb, I know it's kind of late in the season right now, but we have 3 more events, and nobody makes money on this, and we don't want to have the appearance that anybody makes anything on this. So we would much rather have the checks made out to the Township of Upper and have the vendors paid from that if we have to.
There's no way to do it this year that I'm aware of, because it has to be a budgeted item. But we can look into, and again, you and I have talked, if we have a separate fund set up, we need approval from the state prior to that. So I'm going to be speaking with our auditor to see if maybe we can come up with some ways where maybe we can help you out a little bit with it, but we have to we have to be cautious with.
I know it's not going to happen overnight, but we need to find a way that this checks can be written directly to the township. So I'll work with the coordinator on that.
Absolutely.
We have a wrap-up meeting Wednesday night to put together all the pros and the cons of yesterday's event, and also to initiate the start for our 4th of July event. So it's like no time off, and from 4th of July, we go right into a fall fest in October, and right into Christmas in the park the last Sunday of November. So that'll be the 4 main events that we have. Another need we do have to look at out there is possibly some kind of a PA system. When we have that many people out there to try to keep it organized, or if a kid gets misplaced. Barb. Barb's grandson we lost him for about a half an hour yesterday, and he was on the bike path with his bucket, still looking for eggs. So, we rounded him up, but thank God he had a bright orange bucket, and we saw him through the woods, so it's a good thing. But Jacob was on an egg hunt, I guess, on his own. So, there's some of the things that we're going to need to take a look at. The lights at Amanda's Field, we have everything for them. We're waiting to get all the particulars together for the installation. Once we get that done, we can finish the grades, get the infields intact, get the dugouts back in, and the rest of the fencing up. Our goal is to have that ready for fall baseball this year. It's not going to happen for spring, but it will be for fall if everything goes according to plan. In wrestling, we just had 2 state champions in our Green Hornet program. I know one was Chick Costaboon again, and another one was Brock, but I don't have Brock's last name, but we will be bringing them in to honor them. And our local hero, Jade Phelps, who is our 13-year-old girl that just went to the Nationals in Oklahoma to wrestle. She won the states already, and unfortunately she lost in the first round, and she's on her way home. A little bit heartbroken, but we all told her she's already done more than any other girl in this area has done by getting that far, so she's to be congratulated. And final thing is, after a 3 to 4 week delay, we finally have our soccer program up and running, our lacrosse program, baseball, and girls softball up and running. So we're making headway due to all the rain and the snow we had this year. It kind of really set us behind schedule. And Barb, the other thing I had was the global application. We didn't put it on the agenda for tonight, for the soccer.
Because the request was for less than 100 people.
Okay, so I don't need to discuss it with committee then?
It gets
Okay,
approved
I'm just making sure.
administratively because of the lower number of participants.
Okay, I saw Neil and Gary come in, so you guys are good to go. Okay? Other than that, we are looking for additional volunteers to help out with this program with the special events. I can't keep tapping the same people. And matter of fact, as I'm walking through and anybody had any complaints, I said, here's the next date, you're more than welcome to come and show up and help us. So it's a great undertaking for everybody, but I think it really proved with the turnout yesterday, as well as the 2 events from last year, that it's definitely something that's been missed and it's definitely needed in this township as a community to bring everybody back together again. And all the work the girls did, and we looked at the kids' smiles yesterday, and man, it made it all worthwhile. So, we just want to keep moving forward. But we will be looking to the township for some kind of help to remedy some of the possible costs and to help control some of it as we move forward. Thanks for everybody that helped out. It was a great event.
And just to dovetail off of Hobie, having been out there yesterday with my grandchild and kids, we always think of Amanda's Field as just being a sports complex, but it has become a focal point of our township. We don't necessarily have our town center as some of our small towns do, but it has become our focal point. Look at our 4th of July, the Fall Festival, now the Spring Fling. I think we got some traditions going on here, and it's definitely a great venue to not only hold sports, but to hold our community events. So, as you can see, we continue to improve the area, and one of these days, when we're done, it's going to be a state-of-the-art facility that all of us are going to be proud of. And I hear nothing but positive comments from people. Of course, like yesterday, we have out-of-towners that came in here to partake in the Easter egg hunt. So, and they were very, very impressed with the way that we keep our facilities, so it's something for us to be proud of.
Yeah, we tried to keep it as small as we could. It's a community event, but unfortunately, just like 4th of July, the word gets out on Facebook and everywhere else. And like 1:15, it was lined up with cars coming in that park and just kids running everywhere. So, you know, we're going to try to take care of everyone we can. But Ed's right. This is becoming the focal point and the gathering point for this township. And we need to be proud about what we're doing out there and to put finishing touches on this now to make it something we can all be proud of. And that's the goal of my committee and people that are working with us, is to get this up and running and being able to handle everything that we want to do out there. So, you know, any support we can get, we'll take it.
Jeff?
I have 3 quick things. I had the honor given to me to call a family of a young 94-year-old person that passed away recently. And it was just to inquire about a medal that she had wanted for her mother. The medal was it was called the WASP Bronze Medal. Well, after I did some digging into this, here she was from World War II, 94 years old. There were 25,000 women that volunteered for this program, the WASP program back then. And there were only 1,074 that were selected. And out of those selected, 38 did lose their lives. There were 11 that lost their life during training, and the 27 while they were actually performing their missions. She was awarded a set of WASP wings, the World War II Victory Medal, the American Theater Ribbon, the American Campaign Medal, Congressional Gold Medal, and I've gone ahead and ordered the bronze medal, the WASP Bronze Medal for her. She also learned how to fly 2 planes, the PT-19, which was a trainer, single-engine trainer, 2-seater, so that they could learn how to fly and teach others how to fly. And her second plane that she learned how to fly was a UC-78, which was the Bobcat. That's a trainer. It's a bridge trainer from single engine to double engine, and it's primarily used for training people to become 2-engine pilots, but also the military version was used for carrying passengers. It wasn't a large plane, but it was pretty good, the size. Now, this training went on from 43 until 44 that she was involved in this, which I thought was pretty unique. And like I said, there were only 1,074 people that were even allowed to finish the training and continue on to get their WASP wings. It was a significant time in my parents' lives that it freed up the men to go fight the war, and the ladies were doing the yeoman's work here, ferrying planes back and forth, and it was a heck of a thing that they did this. It was finally disbanded in 1944. Hap Arnold, based on the guidance from the President of the United States at that time, had to disband the service. So what's the point of this? My point is that I'd really like to see a resolution for this 94-year-old young lady, that we would bring in the parents, or excuse me, the parents, the siblings, the kids, and present them. Yeah, we get some pretty old parents. But bring in the daughter and present her the resolution and the medals. I'm hoping to have the medals any day now, and I think if we could do it at the next meeting, it would be nice. So
Take that as a motion.
I moved it, yes.
And second.
Clark?
Okay, Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Hoggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
The second thing, real quick, and I'm not going to go into great detail on this, other than that many of you and the public have read that the Route 50 bridge closing will not be as big as a disaster that it was originally played out a few months ago. Through the work of the rescue squad people, Jay Potter and Chief Ed Carter from Tuckahoe, and myself and OEM people, we had gone forward with a plan to provide emergency services to Corbin City if needed. And it was going to be a costly plan. Well, after the state reviewed that plan, they said, we're not going to go that way. We want to do it a different way. And they went back to the drawing board and came up with a new way. So basically, the bridge will remain open with one lane to use traffic both ways. and it'll be controlled by a lighting system. And the emergency responders will have a way to control that light when they need to respond through the traffic to get to their scene in the Corbin City side. So the good news is that the bridge will remain open, so that's the good news. The bad news is that the project that was only going to be 9 months from September through May will now be September of this year, 15, and probably not completed until 2017. So we're going to look at trying to set up, and this is only preliminary, and I have talked to the mayor about this, but I bring it to the board. We should have, or I'm recommending that we do a joint meeting with Corbin City, possibly the 27th of April, which is the last meeting in April. A place and time to be announced. Could be here, could be over at the other venue, our community center, if we think needed be. Or maybe it's not even necessary. But the reason why I'm suggesting the meeting is they only gave us the bits and pieces of the plan. They didn't give us the full plan. So they have to bring more to the public. So I'd like them to really give it. The other thing is we developed, over the last few months, developed a small standard operating guideline for pipeline emergencies. It's only a draft. It's been shot out to the OEM people and to the fire people, the chiefs in the squad and the fire side to take a look at. It's a working draft. It still has to go a long way. We need to sit down with South Jersey Gas and do some work with them. But at least the initial plan is in the process, and we hope to bring that to fruition probably several months down the road. It's a rush, but not a big rush. So we will have an emergency plan in place in a few months. And finally, happy Easter to everyone. We won't have our meeting, and I wish you all a happy Easter, and I hope you have a good summer season coming up.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Just got a few things. It looks like our street sweeper will be hitting the roads coming this next month, so they'll be out in their neighborhood trying to clean everything up. Also, come April, there will be another leaf pickup, and we urge everybody to separate any of your twigs and small branches from your leaves so it's easier for them to be able to clear the roadways. Our gov deals. We brought in $66,727 from gov deals in getting rid of some of our surplus equipment. However, we do have 4 pieces of equipment. Unfortunately, they believe it was entered and the bidding was too high, set too high. So in reviewing the vehicles that we have here, I wanted to make a motion that we drop the opening bids to $500 to try to clear out the rest of the equipment that we have.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Okay, that's it of the reports of the governing body. We have 2 presentations here tonight. The first presentation is going to be from Chris Constantino and his entourage from the New Jersey DEP Coastal Engineering. Paul? Mr. Constantino, if you want to take the floor.
I just want to thank you for having us here. Normally when we start these big shore protection projects, we like to go to each municipality that we're partnered with and give a presentation on what we're doing in your town and what the project entails overall, and just to inform everyone, the public, the governing body, what we're doing. So if we follow up on anything, or if you have any questions, you want to ask us any questions, we can provide you with the information we have. Essentially, the project's called the Great Egg Harbor Inlet, Towns Inlet, Beachville. It's with Ocean City, Strathmere, and Seattle City. My name is Chris Constantino. I'm the project manager from the Bureau of Coastal Engineering, Tom Gerber. Dwight Bacon is from the Corps of Engineers. He is the project manager from the Philadelphia District Corps of Engineers. We also have a couple other people with us. Christian Bickings is the resident engineer on the project for the Corps of Engineers. We also have Tim Kramer and Brian Quimpa. They're both the site and project managers from Great Lakes Dredge and Dock, the prime contractor that won the bid. Essentially, I also want to thank Ted Kingston for some photos from him. So I put them on a PowerPoint presentation because they're good data points of what's going on here. We all know the situation in this area. It's one of the hot spots in this region. It's something that we've been keeping an eye on, and we've had to remedy a few times in the past. The projects with Township and our office together to join the partner. The breakdown of our office, the Bureau of Coastal Engineering, really starts with Governor Chris Christie. Bob Martin is our commissioner. Rich Borzazian is the assistant commissioner in charge of our office. And then we have the Office of Engineering and Construction, which is Dave Rosenblatt there. He's responsible for the Bureau of Coastal Engineering, Office of Floodplain Management, Bureau of Dam Safety. And William Dixon, Bill Dixon, he couldn't be here tonight, but he's my manager and he's in charge of all the coastal engineering projects going out of our office. Essentially, the Bureau of Coastal Engineering's purpose is to administer shore protection projects, to protect property and infrastructure and life, ultimately. Essentially, some of our projects are to preserve some coastal resources through environmental restoration projects. And the last part, we used to do state maintenance dredging, but the DOT now is in charge of it. Essentially, our funds come from the realty transfer tax. Every year we have $25 million. And it's to implement these projects, the studies that develop these projects, and through the project and construction management of these projects. $25 million in the next 2 years is probably not going to be enough of all the shore protection projects that we're doing, but we're making sure we're working out partnerships with the Corps to make sure we accomplish these projects in time and fashion. How we divide our money? First and foremost, we're in a 50-year commitment with the Corps of Engineers on these projects that we sign on with. So our money initially gets allocated to the Corps projects. They get funded for those fiscal years. And they are studies, feasibility studies and concept studies. The projects themselves, the shore protection and storm damage reduction projects, and environmental restoration projects. When we have money left over, we trickle that money down to municipalities like we did with you guys in 2001, 2009, and 2011. We'll do state and municipal shore protection projects as well. And then also some of the money goes to technical services to help develop our projects and monitor our projects and the performance of our projects with Stevens Institute of Technology, Richard Stockton College Coastal Research Center, Division of Fish and Wildlife deals with our endangered species management stuff, and the New Jersey Geological Survey. They are the ones that help identify sand resources for our projects, our shore protection projects. We cost share the money, 65-35 with the federal government on these federal projects. And what we do is we cost share to 35%, that's the state's obligation, with the municipality 75-25. When it's just a state project, state local project, the cost share is 75-25. I have asterisks on the federal portion for this go around because this project is being funded 100% by the federal government. The project, why we're here, the New Jersey Shore Protection Study was implemented in the mid-80s. It was to study the coastline of New Jersey because we have many areas that were plagued with storm damage. So it was to go through the coast and identify areas that needed, identify what was going on and to push forward studies for projects in areas where there were problems. This project, the recommended plan, called for a beach fill with a berm and a dune. Sand was coming from an offshore borrow area and from the inlet borrow area, and the periodic nourishment was over 50 years. And then this project was actually authorized in 2007 and received funding over several years for construction since 2007, but it was never enough to initiate construction. But Sandy changed that all. And just to have a few photos, and a lot of you have seen these photos while we're here. We have a dynamic coastline. We have some hotspot erosion areas that have threatened infrastructure and property. And sometimes it's episodic, go back and forth between being eroded and being increationary. But all in all, we have a very thin barrier and very thin line of defense in a lot of sections. So that's why we're coming here. So these are all photos and stuff that everyone's familiar with, I'm sure. These are from the 2008 episode. This is the top left one is from 2008. The bottom right one is from 2014. So essentially, the project is in response to the Hurricane Sandy supplemental bill. We got 100% federal funding to fund this project and several other projects along the New Jersey coast, which is a good thing. Takes a lot of the burden off the local municipalities initially. And then what's different about this project also is periodic nourishment. It typically used to be a cost share 65-35, but now what we've done is the cost share split is actually 50-50 state and local. Actually federal and state and local. And this project is one of many that have been awarded throughout the Atlantic coast of New Jersey and even the Delaware River and the Raritan Bay coastline. Altogether, we have 5 that were projects that were authorized but not constructed, and then we had probably about 6 or 8 projects that were already constructed before and received Sandy funds to rebuild it back to their design. A little bit of the schedule, the current schedule for this project. And I put current in parentheses in quotation marks because the project's been moving. The schedule is adjusted based upon availability, based upon some other factors. But currently we're mobilizing in both of the main areas. We're mobilizing on Ludlam Island and we're mobilizing in Ocean City. So equipment, pipelines, bulldozers, excavators, all that other stuff that's associated with the Beachville project. The tugboats and all the marine-based equipment is here and actively setting up this project. Right now, we expect the Beachville to begin in Stradmere somewhere around the 11th of April. And we actually have some ongoing subcontractor work right now in that we're removing some of the damaged pilings up the north end there. The subcontractors are also going to be doing work like reconstructing crossovers, sand fence, and also putting in grass, different types of grass and stuff next fall. And down in Seattle City, we're reconstructing a few outfalls that are in the surf zone. The Ocean City project is actually not, right now it's slated to begin on the 16th, not on the 15th, but again, it's a moving target depending on when they get here, weather, capital delays, productivity, and other projects are all playing into that, but right now we're targeting the Beachville finish in July, probably around the 1st or 2nd week of July in Ocean City, and at that time, the Liberty Island, which is the dredge that will be coming for Ocean City, will be leaving and going to another project. We expect the overall project on Ludlam Island, the Beachville portion, to be finished the 1st or 2nd week of September, based upon what our estimates were for the sand quantity and stuff like that. At that time, after they're done, the Illinois, which is the Cutterhead hydraulic dredge that'll be here, will be leaving and going on to another job, but we still will have some ongoing work as far as finishing subcontractor stuff after that. That should be done shortly after, within a month or two, overall, with the outfalls and everything. And then we're going to do dune grass planting starting in November. We have to wait until the plants are dormant before we can plant everything. And they'll be doing fertilization. So we'll be finishing up the planting portion sometime next spring. What to expect for this project? There's going to be 2 dredges. It's going to be the hydraulic dredge, the Illinois off of Stradmere in Seattle City. And there's going to be Liberty Island off of Ocean City. There's going to be pipeline in the water. There already is pipeline that's sunk right now, leading up to the shoreline where they're going to be pumping on the beach. And there's already some pipe landing on the beach, and they're stockpiling some pipe on the beach now for the actual shore-based portion of it. We're going to have baskets on the beach at the discharge ends to collect the debris and potential munitions. We're going to have inspection staff monitoring 24/7 to make sure that whatever's caught in the basket is taken care of appropriately. There's going to be heavy machinery throughout the project area. Bulldozers, excavators, trucks. There's going to be storage sheds and mobile offices. But the good thing about this is we actually require that the contractor keeps everything in small 1,000 foot footprints. And as they finish and complete filling a section, they'll advance down the beach, and what they'll do is they'll open up a section behind them, so it'll only be 1,000 foot sections at a time, try to minimize the impact to the locals and everything. We're going to have crossover construction and fence installation, grass planting. We're going to have project information signs that are going to be in the project area. You'll be able to see them from the crossovers if people are walking up to the beach to identify the project and who the partners are, and how many days that we've had without injuries, hopefully the entire contract. For this project, the access in Stratmere is designated as Williams and Hawthorne Avenues. But most of the mobilization thus far is coming down the beach from Seattle City. They're coming in through Seattle City Boulevard, and they're getting onto the beach at 7th Street, assembling all the big equipment, and they're just going to mobilize down the beach to minimize any impacts on the roads, on the tight corners, smaller access ways. And they're going to be staging and storing equipment essentially within the work footprint for the most part, but there are going to be sections that are designated on our plans that will allow them to stockpile stuff that's going to be done afterwards, fencing, sand for the crossovers and stuff like that. So that won't be right in the footprint of the project, but we'll have it closed up pretty tight and clean, so it's not nice. The dredges. So this one on the upper left is the Liberty Islands. The one on the lower right, I don't know what it is, but it was a good cross-sectional diagram of what the dredge looks like and what it does. It has two trailing suction arms that drag at the bottom and pull the sand into the hull of the boat. The boat pulls up to what we call a cube. It's a section where they tie in and hook up to the hose and pipeline, and it pumps. It's got its own pumps on the dredge, and it'll pump out from the boat itself. The upper left is the Illinois. That's the dredge that's going to be on this project. The one that's on the lower right, again, I don't know, but it was a good cross-sectional diagram from the Corps' website. It shows what we're doing. Essentially, there are anchors on the back and front of the dredge. It holds it in and pulls it into the head of sand. Our head spins. It draws it through the engine, through pumps, and then discharges it out the pipe onto the beach. Now, that stays fixed for the most part at its location, whereas the Liberty Island is self-propelled and can go back and forth. The screens that we have on the dredges are to keep munitions and debris out. They're 1.25 inches by 6 inches. We have a good standard operating procedure between us and the contractor and with our munition specialists to make sure that the screens stay in good shape. As soon as there's a problem, they're repaired right away. We use this size screen on here to keep some of the bigger, more dangerous stuff out. And then what we have is the smaller screens on the beach that are smaller diameter, 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch, and that's to get this smaller stuff collected. That stuff tends to be less dangerous, but we don't know for sure. So we just do what we can, collect it all, and it's disposed of in the proper fashion. There's some equipment, bulldozer and excavator. The crab is here. There's 2 of them here. They're down in Seattle City, where they were down in Seattle City. They're going to be doing the surveying, so you see them up on the beach driving out in the water, back and forth. They collect the data for the topographic and bathymetric surveys, so they can see what they need to do, and then when they're done, they can see how much they put there so they can get paid. This is actually from the 2009 beach bill down at Bell Beach. Overall, some of the features of the project, we're going to have crossovers that are going to be reconstructed. So we're going to have nice sturdy crossovers at 29 locations just to Stratmere alone. Most of them are pedestrian, several are handicap, and several are vehicular. They are all going to be, here, this is a pedestrian crossover. It's 10 foot wide. The top portion is the landward side, the bottom portion is the seaward side. We'll have straight line fence in the back, zigzag fence in the front to help capture sand, keep it from going up over the top of the boat in the build dune and maintain its size. We'll have a slope of 7-on-1 down the slopes on the back and front to make it a little easier to walk up and down the dunes and not walking on the 5-on-1 slope. And they're constructed at 12 inches, or 6 inches thick, and will be bordered with fence. This is the vehicular crossover, and in Stradmere, our vehicular crossovers are being built with a pedestrian next to it or with the handicap crossovers next to them. So the vehicular crossovers are 15 foot wide up and down the face. It's a 36 foot wide section up top that's to accommodate the 2 trucks coming up at the same time, makes for better visibility. And then on the one side, we'll have a handicap crossover, which has flat 30 foot runs, flatter slopes, and then it'll have a very flat section, a horizontal section for 10 feet, and then it'll progress up to the top of dune, and then it'll work its way back down. The advantage of doing the crossovers like this with the I-5 material as opposed to the wood structure is if there is a storm, it gets damaged, it's less costly to reconstruct it, it's less debris that gets out in the water, and maintenance is easier with public works doing it than having a contractor go and rebuild it. And this is essentially the same thing for the pedestrian crossover with the vehicular combo, and they just go side by side. So that concludes my portion. Dwight's got a couple minutes to set some stuff. Let's go back real quick. You just Google search or search the shore protection program. We have an up-to-date site. It's not as up-to-date as we'd like to be. We're working on right now, providing up-to-the-minute project information, but Dwight has some information about keeping everyone informed about the current ongoing project.
I'm Dwight Bacon, the project manager for the Corps of Engineers for this Beachville project, and I'd like to thank Upper Township for inviting us down to go over the project. This just gives you an indication of what our district covers. We handle many water resources projects and navigation within the Delaware River watershed and all of the South Jersey shoreline and most of the entire shoreline of the state of Delaware. Again, it's the official title, Rain Harbor Inlet, the towns is in it, and Chris already mentioned the 3 towns covered. This is one of our fact sheet pages. It's on our website. It just shows you where exactly this project is going to extend. It's the southern portion of Ocean City from 34th Street to the last numbered street, 59th, and then the entire island of London Island. And we have this is a cross section that shows the design. We have a better slide of that coming up. This gives an indication of where the sand's going to come from. For initial construction, we need, I believe it was 4.2 million cubic yards. We could not get all that from Horson's Inlet. There's not that kind of quantity there. So we needed to go offshore. We looked at 3 different locations, our geotechnical engineers, and we settled on L3 to provide the most amount of sand, and geographically it's close to the 2 locations. And then for the periodic nourishment, every 5 years, we're going to use C1, that's the Horson's Inlet location. And I forget the quantity, but it's much less for periodic nourishment. And a lot of people will say, why are you putting the sand on the beach? It's just going to go away. We realize that. This just gives an indication of the theory behind what we call soft shore protection, which means sand, not seawalls, you know, which are very difficult to get permitted, by the way, almost impossible in New Jersey anymore. So what we have is we have our existing beach, which is the yellow color. Our coastal engineers run a suite of storms with data from the last 50 to 100 years and determine the best configuration, dune height, berm width to give us a certain level of protection. That's the orange. What the theory is we don't ever want to get into that level of protection if we can help it. So we have a brown slug out here. It's what we call sacrificial. In this case, it's a 5-year cycle. We're hoping, or based on our design, that this is what erodes. And so within 5 years, we'll be no worse off than here, and then we'll come back and put the sand back. Now, if by chance we get into that, which is what happened with Sandy, we get a disaster declaration, and we can go in advance of the 5 years and do an emergency storm. This is, a lot of this equipment Chris showed us already. This is just a basket on the beach with the discharge pipe pumping through it, giving an indication of how the sand comes through and we trap anything that we don't want on the beach. And we've been very successful in catching munitions after what happened on LBI. I'm sure some of you heard that newspaper. We haven't, in most cases, at least in South Jersey, we haven't caught too many munitions in the basket. I mean, there's not a lot, which is good news. Again, just some more equipment moving the sand on the beach once it's pumped. Here's some particulars for the Strathmere portion of the project. We have a dune at elevation 14.8 feet. Now that's an elevation, not a height. As you can see, the second bullet, our berm is at 6. So the dune's going to be 8.8 feet. If I did the math right. And then, as we said, periodic nourishment every 5 years. And just to complete the statistics, our dune has a 25-foot top width, 105 side slopes, and we say 50-foot wide berm. I believe that's the design berm. Once we build the project, it will appear much bigger because of that brown section, the advanced nourishment I've shown in the previous slide. This is a close-up view of that picture before. This shows how we build the project. I know it's kind of hard to see, and I apologize, but this is the existing beach right here. And then the solid line is what we're going to place. We call that a construction template. It's very difficult to place the sand underwater all the way out here. So we built this construction template. It's easier to build, and it's easier to measure payment for the contractor. And then that over time will mimic this existing slope. It'll be worked on by the waves and the wind, and it'll achieve what we call an equilibrium profile for an actual slope. And that can happen quickly or first take several months, depending on how much wind and waves you get. Every beach field season is a little different. This is some of the boring stuff. To be able to do one of these projects, we have to have a project partnership agreement with our partner. In this case, it's the state of New Jersey. And even though the project is 100% paid for by the federal government, we still have to enter into one of these agreements. And that was signed in June. That's an important piece of information. Without this project, this PPA, we couldn't have done the project. And as Chris said, there's some of the cost sharing information that you already went over. Just for completeness, we had a contract awarded in November. The notice to proceed was issued in November. And we're going to start pumping in April, both in Ocean City and Long Island. And complete in September. And as of now, the awarded contract is $57.6 million. And that is the entire project, both islands. For Strathmere alone, we're looking at that 4.2 million cubic yards I mentioned. About 600,000 will go into Strathmere. I showed you the bar area. It's about 2 miles off of Long Island. And there's the periodic nourishment number, 734,000. That's for all of Loveland every 5 years. The last item on here is kind of important because you may see this piece of equipment associated with it. It's our structures monitoring. And here's a photo of what it looks like. What this does is it monitors the vibrations in the area where we're working so that we can be sure we don't have too much vibration and we won't be inducing any issues in the structures near where we're working. This is a particulars on how we're going to be doing Loveland Island. We're going to make our first pipe landfall. And by the way, we keep referring to Hawthorne Avenue. I think it's a paper street, right?
Correct.
There's not a real sign out there.
That's where the emergency access location is at, kind of at the end of Strathmere, beginning of Whale Beach location.
Okay. When we say a pipe landfall, we have a pipe that comes from the ocean onto the beach. And so that's the location where it'll be. And then we'll come from there north to Forson's Inlet State Park. Then we'll break back and pump south. And the reason we keep having these landfalls down the island is you can only pump so far. The pumps on the dredge can only push the sand so far through the pipes. So once we get to 8th Street, I guess, we'll do a second pipe fall landing at 30th Street in Seattle City, pump north to 8th, then south to 52nd, and a third pipe fall landing at 69th Street, again north to 52nd, and then south to Townsend's Inlet. And we anticipate getting there in September. And this is our web address. If you want any information on the project, we'll have daily updates where we are on the beach. And also, they're sitting here, they're back cards on the project. And that web address is on the back, the lower right-hand corner. The only thing is we didn't have the /GET on here. That was just created last week to get you to our web page exactly where you want to be. Sometimes it's difficult to navigate from our main page. So if you want to pick one of these up and just write that /GET, you can get right to where you want to be in this project.
So I just also interrupt, we do have a link for this, that website on our webpage, as well as probably later this week we'll have this presentation up on our webpage, so if you want to look at it later.
And that pretty much wraps up our presentation. Council.
I think you answered one of the questions that's frequently asked, where you're getting the sand from and how come you're not taking it out of the inlet that pretty much you can walk across right now. So I think you answered that question, that there is a method to the madness as far as where you're taking the original sand from.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, as soon as they wrap up, Ted, go ahead.
Seems like we answered a question.
Sure. And do you want to stand up, Ted? Just go right up to the podium. Your name, where you're from, real quick one.
Ted Kingston, Strathmere, and I'd just like to welcome the Army Corps to Strathmere. We're happy to see you. The one area of concern is the inlet. I see where the borough area is going to be offshore and not the inlet for this project. I guess the concern is that we're in a situation like Manalocan, where if the inlet is full of sand and we have a storm and the whole back marsh area fills up with water, you know, after the hurricane, when the north changes northwest, that water is going to come out somewhere. And if it can't get out the inlet, you know, we're being set up where it's going to cut the island in half somewhere. You know, in asking Township Committee many times over the months, I understand the complexities of changing the plan and all, but at what point is the inlet going to be addressed? If it's not going to be addressed in this beach, Phil, will it be addressed in the next one or what? I mean, it seems like what goes on is the unintended consequence of the beach fills in Ocean City is that the inlet in the back bay has filled up with sand to an extent that never seen before. I mean, it's almost closed up. The back bay is just full of sand. You know, we have a problem now that we didn't have in the past with flooding along the back street in Strathmere, and all because the water can't get out the inlet. That's the area of concern. Other than that, I mean, everybody in Strathmere is really looking forward. We're happy to see you guys here. If nobody else wants their sand, we'll take it. But the inlet is a concern.
Well, it is the plan for the, like I said, if you're at inertia, we use the inlet, which would be 5 years in case, unless there's a bad storm, we need to commit sooner.
And since we did the initial project in 2009, like we said, we had Stockton College's one of our technical consultants, and they consult for the township as well. As a result of the authorization we got to do the work back then, we actually implemented them going out and surveying twice a year to monitor the inlet conditions. We've been, there's been studies that have monitored that inlet and a bunch of other inlets, and there is a cycle that goes on there, and things do happen. Maybe is it more exasperated because there's more sediment in the budget now from Ocean City's beach bills? It's something that these further studies that we're doing, we're trying to identify. And the good thing about having them there doing this monitoring for us and for you guys is it's keeping a good eye on the situation. So if we have a point where there's something that's drastic that needs to be done or needs to be addressed, we're not doing it right when it's coming and it's too late. So we are aware of the situation. And like Dwight said, it's first nourishment, that's the one word we use. I mean, if something ends up having to be done in the interim, we'll obviously have to address, whatever's going on there. But right now, at this time, we're not.
Thank you, sir. And Ted, thank you for your photographs.
Thank you, appreciate it.
As soon as these gentlemen wrap up, we're going to have a report from Seaville Volunteer Fire Company
And the fire commissioners.
and their fire commissioners. Thank you for coming tonight, gentlemen, and if you would, speak loudly into the microphone, identify who you're with, and if you have any listen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Barr, members of the committee. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Hans Chiquette. I'm a local attorney. I'm a township resident. I live in Seaville. I am also general counsel for the Seaville Volunteer Fire and Rescue Company. With me this evening is Rich Stevens. My left here, Rich is the chief of the company. I also have with me Brian Allegretto. Brian is the president of the Board of Trustees, and I know you all both know Rich and Brian. We're before you tonight, as you know, because we were extended an invitation to come and speak to you about several issues, some of which are intended to satisfy your best practices obligations. And in a moment, I'm going to have Rich Stevens address those. But before he gets to that, I would like to address something that they are really not able to address. And that is something you gentlemen are all very familiar with, and frankly, anybody that reads the newspaper is familiar with. And that is the indictment and the criminal prosecution of the former chief and former treasurer of the company. When I received Barbara Young's letter, actually before that, I reached out to the Deputy Attorney General who is in charge of the prosecution and spoke to him about this meeting. And he's a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Gilmore. And Mr. Gilmore expressed some concern about any member of the company speaking in public about this matter because it is the subject of a continuing criminal prosecution. He's concerned because Brian and Rich, who would be the people speaking here, if there is a trial, they will likely be witnesses for the state. And Mr. Gilmore was concerned that things that were said publicly in a public forum could be used by the defense in the event there was a trial. So he really did not want any of the members commenting on the subject of the criminal indictment. What I can tell you is this. There was, and briefly, there was discovered what was thought to be some fiscal irregularities about a year and several months ago. The individuals that were thought to be involved were called in. There was an internal investigation done. There were interviews conducted, and as a result of that internal investigation, within a very short period of time, a couple days, the chief resigned his position. Shortly after that, the treasurer resigned his position. And the company then conducted an additional investigation into past matters, and unfortunately concluded that the one matter that prompted all of this appeared perhaps not to be an isolated incident. So, because of that, the company contacted the state police, turned over its records to the state police. State police conducted their own investigation, and as a result of that investigation, indictments were handed down against the former chief, former treasurer, and one other member of the company. And as I mentioned, those matters are currently the subject of an ongoing prosecution. What the company would like you to know, or at least point out a couple things to you. First of all, when they discovered the irregularity, there was no delay, there was no hesitation. They stepped up, they stepped forward, and they did what they needed to do. These circumstances are always difficult. They involve people that you're friendly with. They involve people that have devoted some time to the company. But nevertheless, they did what they had to do, and they did it promptly. Number two is that once the investigation was over, we contacted our company accountant, Bob Kelly, and asked him to audit our policy and procedures manual and make any recommendations that he thought would be appropriate to revise our procedures. Mr. Kelly did that. He did make some recommendations, and those recommendations have been implemented, and some changes have been made in order to attempt to ensure that something like this won't happen again. Understand that there were policies and procedures in place when this happened, in place for many years. And of course, like all accounting policies, the policies provided for certain checks and balances, so this type of thing wouldn't happen. Unfortunately, if it is determined that there was a misappropriation of funds, then it would appear that the people involved in that misappropriation of funds were the same people that were supposed to be conducting the checks and balances. This was not an individual. This was more than one individuals involved if something happened. And any accountant or auditor would tell you that under those circumstances, it is very challenging to try to prevent that from happening. But nevertheless, we have implemented Mr. Kelly's recommendations, are now following them, and if you have any specific questions about what they may be, Mr. Allegretto can address them for you. And finally, we want you to know that we now have new leadership. Rich is the chief. Lisa Mason is the new treasurer. And believe me, everybody is quite aware and intent on making sure that the new policies and procedures are followed so as to avoid anything else like this in the future. And with that, I'd just like to say I hope that this explanation is helpful to you. Believe me, the company would like nothing better than to clear the air on this situation, but we are precluded from doing so, and so I'll have to be the one to briefly speak for them on this particular issue. And with that, as I mentioned, Barbara had sent us a letter dated March the 5th that identified 5 or 6 bullet points that she thought that, or thought that the company might like to address. And with that, I'll step aside and let Rich address it.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Seville Volunteer Fire and Rescue Company, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, is a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. The company is comprised of approximately 40 active volunteers. The mission of the company is to protect the life and property of the residents of the Seville Fire District. The company annually receives funding from the Upper Township Fire District Number 4 Board of Fire Commissioners through a fire protection agreement, along with private donations. In 2014 in review, the company answered 142 calls for service. The average on-scene time was 26 minutes. The average response from our membership was 12 for a total of 738 man-hours. The company also conducted 24 training drills with an average attendance of 21 members for each totaling 1,743 man-hours. Also in 2014, company members participated in special events throughout the township, such as the 4th of July event, Fire Prevention Week activities in conjunction with the Upper Township Emergency Services, and the Junior Firefighter Program hosted by the Upper Township Chiefs Association. Now I'm going to turn it over to President Allegretto, who's going to speak on our accounting practice that was implemented in November of 2014.
As Rich stated, my name is Brian Allegretto, President of Seville Fire Company. I'll go over some bullet points, and if you have any questions afterward, our attorney, Hans, pretty much told you how we got here tonight. What we did was enacted some additional policies as part of our financial policy agreement that included a budget within the fire company that is approved by the members, so there's transparency throughout that with all the membership. We enacted a voucher system that wasn't in place before that requires multiple signatures in order to procure funds for purchases and expenditures. That system of checks and balances can include anywhere from 8 to 10 people involved with that process, which we thought would all but eliminate the possibility of this happening again. There would be, you would need a lot of people in collusion in order for this to happen again. So we thought that was our best course of action. We have a quarterly trustees audit that is done. They are given the records for each quarter, and they do a complete audit and checks and balances as far as that goes. Our fund drive and coin drop monies are always handled now by a group of people, at least 2 to 3 people, in counting of any coin drop monies. Any checks that come in through donations are immediately restrictively endorsed and deposited within at least a week's time frame. Those are the main points that we came up with that we thought would help save us from this happening again. You have any questions?
No, I know it was tough for you gentlemen to have to come before us tonight.
Absolutely.
And as a public servant, we are held to a higher standard, and above all, we are held accountable for what we do with our taxpayers' dollars. And I think as far as transparency is concerned, and the thin ice that you had to walk on tonight, as far as a criminal prosecution still in proceeding, I personally feel that you have exercised due diligence on your part in rectifying the situation in-house, and I appreciate that you did address the issue right away, and I appreciate the cooperation that you have shown to law enforcement in the investigation, and above all, Chief, I think you've done a fine job in holding the morale together of your personnel. I know that it's been a tough thing over the months, but above all, I think that you guys have increased your internal controls from what I've seen through the months, and I think the people of the township have the confidence in you to provide us with the fire services. That's all I have to say. Anybody else have anything to say?
No, I agree with everything you said.
Yeah, I could say. I echo Ed's thoughts. I'd just like to go on record saying that throughout this whole process, they have not stood down. Their people have gone out and done the job at the fires when needed. No matter what the weather is, they're there. They're a great mutual aid company to the other companies within the Upper Township area. They all work well together. They continually act like a professional group of people, receiving their training as required by various training laws, et cetera, from the state of New Jersey. And I know that you, Brian, and Rich have pulled that company really together and cemented it, and I'm looking for greater things out of you. And thank you very much for coming and spending the time with us.
Well, we thank you for the opportunity, and I'd also like to further say that without the support of the membership in our department, it really solidified us as a family and a brothership, and has brought us closer together, and I think we're stronger for it.
True, true. Can we work on changing the color of the trucks, though? No.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
gentlemen.
very much, gentlemen. Appreciate that very much.
Okay, Barb, I guess we'll just move into the resolutions now.
Good evening. My name is Joe McGroarty.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
I'm going to be brief. I've had the pleasure of being the solicitor for Upper Township Fire District Number 4 for 30 years.
Oh.
And I have truly enjoyed working with the individuals both from the fire company and the fire district. I've been asked to speak on behalf of the commissioners with respect to the budgetary process. I'll go through it briefly. It's a very open process. There's public meetings. The process starts with the fire company meeting with the fire district commissioners in August and September to go over next year's plans. Those meetings are subject to our public meetings in which the public can participate. Generally by October, there is a first reading, hopefully sometimes in September, but then we'd have a second reading in October, again a public meeting, and then the budget is then submitted to the Department of Community Affairs, who reviews it and gets back to me and the commissioners regarding any suggested changes, ideas, and so forth. Then there is a certification by the state that the budget is acceptable. This year we were successful in obtaining that. And then in January, the budget has a full public hearing on which a specific notice goes out to the public. Any discussions, additions, deletions occur. And then in January the 3rd, Saturday in January, there is a public vote on both the budget and the election. This year we elected 2 new commissioners. With respect to the surplus, I think there was a question regarding the surplus. The surplus every year, this year was about $6,000. Got rolled right into the new budget. We just today received the audit for 2014. I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen it yet. I was told by the chairman that it had been received. But I did speak to the auditor about a week ago, and everything is fine. I'm assuming the report is going to echo that. The audit for 2013 had one small suggestion which was implemented, which was the commissioners or the treasurer to meet on a little more frequent basis between January and the issuance of the audit. That's been accomplished. Again, I spoke to the auditor a couple weeks ago, and he's very satisfied with the progress. That's all I have. Hopefully they had all the documents, as you know, are public. They're all online, and they're available at request at the fire commissioners.
Now, like the township budget, the budget that you produce is standard format by the state, or,
Oh, correct.
so it follows the state process.
It is a form they send to us, and we need to comply with that form.
Yep. And then the public records, I know that all the companies put their public records up on the commissioner's website, which is linked to our website.
Correct.
And I know that Ed and the company are working hard to make that happen. They're all received here. They're not all up yet. Ed was telling me before the meeting that they're
Right.
working hard to finalize that process.
That's what we heard.
Yeah, but
I believe you have everything we
yeah,
have.
everything's there, and I appreciate the due diligence to make that happen.
Great,
Thank you.
and we certainly appreciate your support.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Thanks.
Forget about that.
Okay, we move on to the resolutions. Item number 4, honoring ShopRite Partners in Caring and Marmora ShopRite Associates, Nicoletta Cicerone and Pierre Derigi for their fight against hunger.
Move the resolution.
Sorry, excuse me.
Second?
Call roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 5, reappointment of Paul Dietrich Sr. as municipal engineer, effective April 1st, 2015.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Call roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 6, authorizing the annual 4th of July fireworks display.
Move the resolution.
Second?
Call roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 7, supporting the Cape May County's project to improve Commonwealth Avenue for the border, from the border with Sea Isle City to Corson's Inlet Bridge.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 8, authorizing institution of in-rem foreclosure proceedings, group number 152.
Move the resolution.
Could we have some detail on that, please, Ted?
Yeah, this is the last batch of older tax lien foreclosures that are going to be filed with the foreclosure unit and the state superior court. It's the last step in the process of obtaining title to the properties. There will be a period where a former owner could come in and redeem it. They would have to pay the back taxes and insurance. It rarely happens. These are properties that do not have significant value, as you can see from the list. Primarily, they're undersized properties.
Are the former owners the only people who would be eligible to redeem it, or is this something that would be
Yes.
subject to tax sale?
Yes, it's already gone to tax sale. They've done the searches, they've done all the preliminary work. This is the final legal filing in the process to get a judgment that indicates the township owns the property. My understanding is the tax collector has also spoken to township engineer and confirmed that there's no physical problems with any of these properties for us to take the title back.
That's correct.
Second?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 9, authorizing the award of a contract with McCarthy Tire and Automotive Centers for automotive parts and supplies.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 10, authorizing the chief financial officer to withdraw funds in the amount of $19,975 from the account titled Recycling Trust for an industrial crosscut paper shredder.
Move the resolution.
Second?
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 11, authorizing the Greater Tuckahoe Area Merchants Association 6th Annual Tour de Tuckahoe Bike Ride and 5th Annual Duathlon to be held at Amanda's Field in Petersburg on Saturday, May 2nd, 2015.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 12, adopting an amendment to the Upper Township Rules and Regulations for sports and recreation programs and use of township facilities.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 13, appointing the 2015 season beach patrol personnel.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 14, reappointment of Roy H. Blackledge III and John M. Hemby as part-time employees to the Upper Township Division of Emergency Medical Services.
Move the resolution.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 15, tax refund for Block 846, 845, Lot 6.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 16, tax refunds, homestead benefits.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 17, under ordinances. This is a public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 3, 2015, and ordinance authorizing the sale of lands for Block 607, Lots 7 and 8.
Is it opened up to the public?
This is a
Open
public
to the
hearing,
public.
yes.
Anybody wish to comment on the ordinance? Hearing nothing from the public, I have a motion.
This is a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 18, this is the public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 4, 2015, an ordinance adopting revisions to chapter 18, 20,
17.
17, I'm sorry, 17, construction of bulkheads of the Code of Upper Township and amending revised general ordinance chapter 19, land subdivision of site plan and land use administration, and chapter 20, the zoning of the Code of Upper Township. And this is the public hearing again.
Before you open it to the public, I just want to mention there were two minor adjustments to the tree preservation definition in the ordinance. They were really for grammatical purposes and clarification and to remove the redundancy. They're not substantive. It doesn't need to be republished. It was just something that was picked up in word processing.
Opening up to the public, anybody have any comment? Hearing nothing from the public, I have a motion.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Call roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 19, this is the introduction and first reading of ordinance number 6, 2015, an ordinance revising job classifications and titles and amending Chapter 5 entitled Personnel of the Code of Upper Township. And if the committee so chooses to introduce this ordinance, I'd like to have a public hearing on April 27th.
Your motion?
Dan, maybe before
You want me a
motion.
little explanation?
Yeah, a little clarify.
Barbara and I went over this. We have in our ordinance a list of titles. And in order to make sure that the titles in our ordinance reflect the titles, especially those that were recently changed or merged with the civil service, this updates that. It doesn't create any more titles or new jobs than what we have now. It just makes our personnel ordinance consistent with civil service and our salary ordinance.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Cobbins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 20, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 7, an ordinance amending ordinance number 17, 2014, known as the salary ordinance for the calendar year 2015. And again, if you choose to introduce this, if we could have the public hearing on April 27th, that would be good.
Move to introduce?
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 21, under new business. Parish of St. Maximilian Colby requests to hold a 50-50 raffle on August 14th at the St. Maximilian Colby Parish.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 22, Upper Township Farmers Market Association, a nonprofit organization, requests waiver of planning board application fee.
Just a little background, this has happened on occasion when churches have had to go in and get a land use application. In the past, we really can't waive the professional fees because that's up to the professionals what they charge on the boards or the escrows. But for churches, the township has waived application fees for the boards. So that's why probably this request came in.
Was there a second on that?
Second.
Was there was a motion?
Second? There was a motion?
John was
No.
Motion.
A motion to approve.
Yeah, second.
Call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 23, under discussion, we have the Upper Township Board of Education proposed bid evaluation for solar power purchase.
Paul, do you have anything on this?
Yeah, over the past several years, we've been going back with the school. Initially, it was thought we were going to put the RFP together. They ended up putting an RFP together based on their energy audit. They had included us as an alternative item as part of their project, knowing that their generation is much larger than ours, so that we might be able to take some benefit of their economies of scale. This is their proposal they have back. There's some things that we need to go through on the technical side with Barb and Dan on the notice and different things, but we just wanted to report that to the committee and find out if you wanted us to continue to move forward in looking at that, whether or not we can extend what they have done or take advantage of anything that they may have done to help us on solar power.
You may want, in the past when we've looked at this, and we do have a commitment of part of a co-op, right? Correct, Barb?
That's correct.
We're because of the timing, we're going to have to commit to it again. But you may want to have maybe a subcommittee of the committee look into it and report back long term. I do have questions as to the manner in which the request for proposals were obtained, because the township hadn't been involved in that, and obviously they set forth alternatives for the township properties, and there are mechanisms to do that, but it's not clear under municipal contract and procurement regulations whether those mechanisms were done properly. So there's a possibility if we wanted to pursue something like this, we may have to do it on our own or correct some of their procedures. But in talking to Barb in terms of the timing, it probably will not be in the timing that the school board's proposals are, if I'm not mistaken, correct, Paul? Because they have to know by June, correct?
Correct, by the time the county would come out, right?
So, and anyway, it's a large commitment because it's a 15-year commitment. So this is something that you really need to review on your own and decide, is this something we want to do? Because if you make this commitment, you're married to this electricity procurement for 15 years.
Whereas typically right now, the procurement is around 18 months to 24 months that we look at.
Up to 2 years.
How much input have we as the township had into the bid specifications and the location of solar panels, et cetera, prior to this going out to bid?
We had looked at general locations and feasibility of where things could go and providing electric bills, but we didn't get as involved in the procurement because the school was working with their consultant that didn't have as much involvement in, marrying up some of the township's requirements compared to what the school requirements were going to.
Personally, I'd be a little bit hesitant to move forward quickly on something like this until we can get a pretty good look at the financials, at the financing, the long-term benefits, the federal energy credits. I've seen they've been up, I've seen they've been down. That concerns me a little bit in terms of the longer-term return on a project like this. I hate to get stuck for the capital and not be getting the return on or getting the cost benefit on the energy end.
There is no capital cost as part of the project. It's just paying for an electric rate.
It's paying for an electric rate.
Yes. Which is significantly less than what we currently pay.
Okay.
But there again, it's
The
mechanisms.
energy markets, look what happened with gasoline, it's half of what it was. So that's why you really need to look at it closely, because it's a 15-year commitment.
Yeah, as I said, I'd be reluctant to move forward with something like this unless we could really put together some kind of a steering committee to really have a look, study it in depth, and really understand the financing of it.
And that's why we brought it back, brought it here to take, to start the discussion.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I think it's, it's a commitment, and we gotta research this.
Now, would we form the subcommittee or?
Usually what happens, the township committee will pick two of its members. You don't want to get in a quorum situation, so the 2 members would volunteer to look into it and report back to the full committee.
Anybody interested?
I certainly would be interested from a financial aspect.
Jeff?
I'm worried about the pipeline right now.
All right, I'll throw my hat in the ring, because I do have a little bit of background on it.
Yeah.
You know what they say, if you miss a meeting, you get volunteers for things, so there isn't.
No, but I know that. There you go. I volunteer Rich.
Yeah, Rich is not here.
But no, I have some background on it with Paul from previous discussions, so I'll be happy to join you, John, and sit down and see where we stand. Good. Okay, motion to pay the bills?
I hereby move that all claims submitted for payment at this meeting be approved and then incorporated into the full minutes of this meeting.
Second?
Second. You got it?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
And for further review, we got the reports of municipal departments, animal control, MUA report, finance office, Department of Public Works, and zoning board can all be found on the township website. Motion?
Is that a motion to
Motion.
accept?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Call
Mr.
roll?
Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Sergeant in here anymore? Troopers? No, they're gone?
They just left minutes ago.
All right, we're going to open it up to public comment. However, we did pass earlier in the year a rule to try to limit people to 5 minutes. And I ask that if you have a question for Township Committee, when you come up to the mic, state your name, your address, and try to be as brief as possible.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Ludwig Samsolski. I live in the Seville section of Upper Township. I've lived here since January 2004. However, my wife's family has had a presence here since 1976. There's 2 things I want to do. First, I want to make a statement, and then I have a question. First, again, since the mayor is not here, you can direct to him that I am thanking him for his service to the township in the early part of his tenure. However, it's time for him to move on. I do not see any apparent growth in the township. Ratables are exiting and nothing substantial is taking place. Rumors and speculation is all that is reported. His remarks in front of organizations or in the media is repetitious and boring. The fire is out. Other examples of his lack of diligence include unnecessary promotions, supervisors who rarely leave their desks, and of course, the useless position of township engineer, who engineers work for himself, to justify his large salary. I know of no projects that need a full-time engineer. Busy work includes the so-called development of town centers in Marmore and Seville. Citizens volunteer to help make plans and spend many afternoons gathering information. They were led to believe they would make a contribution to the benefit of the township. It led to a dead end. I might add that he was invited but never attended. Once the grant money was piddled away, the project disappeared in an unannounced, abrupt end. As a council, here's my question. As a council member, how much is each official paid? And is there a health and retirement benefit? I've asked that question to other township citizens and have yet to get a complete answer. Mr. Barr, can and will you respond to my question?
Yes, sir. Township committee members are paid $10,000 a year.
$11,250.
$11,250. I'll let Barb's our money person over here. She'd probably be better suited to answer that question for me.
All of the committee members receive $11,250 annually. The mayor receives an additional $5,000.
Slow it down, I'm taking notes.
The mayor
Second thing
receives
after 11,000.
$11,250 each one of the committee members. The mayor receives an additional $5,000.
What about health and benefits, health and other benefits?
It varies with the committee members.
How so?
Some take them, some do not. Some committee members take the health benefits, some do not.
Okay. Total benefit package would include everything about what? How much money?
Depends. We're not talking, well, there is a family. It depends on the coverage, whether it's family, 2 adults, or a single plan.
So we're talking maybe $20,000, $25,000?
Family is, I believe, about 30,000. Single goes down to 10 or 12,000, I believe. I don't have the figures in front of me to be exact.
And it's part of retirement too?
You have to have 25 years.
But it is a contribution to the, what retirement plan for the state of New Jersey or local, or how's that working out?
There is only one committee member that is eligible for the pension program, the PERS.
Okay. Sir, there are many other concerns and issues that I can and will identify in future meetings now that I have added township meetings to my busy schedule.
Thank you, sir.
All right, good evening, gentlemen. My name is John DeSalvo. I reside in the Marmore section of Upper Township. Just have a few budgetary questions I want to ask for you guys here tonight. Start off with, the township received a grant for $220,000 to be utilized on the development of Amanda's Field in Petersburg. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is it also correct that in order to ascertain these funds, we must put up matching funds of our own into the development of Amanda's Field?
Not to my knowledge.
Paul?
No.
Part of the grant process was that part of our match was not funds directly, but we were to be completing some of the labor work with the township workforce.
Okay, so you guys do not need to match the $220,000 you're being given by the county?
Correct.
Okay. I know you guys spoke prior about rolling a grant into the 2015 year towards the goal of matching these funds, but I'm assuming that that's not correct then, where you're telling me that there's no matching funds.
There was never a requirement for match funds.
Okay. All right. Yes, you guys, in regards to the fields now out there, I know we spent thousands of dollars to build the baseball fields. We put fences up, only to tear it all down and rebuild it again. Exactly how much money was it that we spent so far on the fencing, the baseball fields? They were all rendered useless, and we had to tear it down and start it all over again.
Nothing's torn
I can answer part of that for you. Everything we took down up there is going to be reused again, first of all. The infield mix we took out was used to raise the grades. We're now a little league affiliated, so we have to have grass infields. That was not taken into play when the fields were designed. Unfortunately, when the fields were put in, some of the infrastructure wasn't done yet. The grading was not done yet. And the fences were being shared. So when we looked at it, it didn't meet any of the rules that I saw for the Little League. And in order to be a Little League, we have to match their criteria. So biggest thing we've done out there is to correct the drainage, correct the conduit, which was put in at 18 inches. It should be at 36 inches. So they're all safety issues that we've done out there. You know, and we'll continue to reorganize it, reconfigure it with the lights. With the way the field was set up before, the lights would have been an issue as far as being far enough away from the foul lines. So what we've tried to do is streamline the process, put people out there that probably know a little bit more about what's going on, and not have so many hands into the mix.
All right, one little further question, just, do you guys have a documented projected estimate on what the total cost is gonna be for this project out there?
It's something we can't really put in place because this project's been going on for 12 years. And as I stated in the past, if somebody would give me a time frame to complete it, then I can give you a rough estimate on it. But until then, I never know what crew we're going to have, how many we're going to have, how many days are going to be there, and what's going to be accomplished. So it's just a constant just rollover, and not really having the manpower to staff it the way I would like to. We take what we can get as we can get it out there.
All right, well, just one last question for you guys then is, I looked over the 2015 budget, and on what line item of the budget or anywhere in the budget does appear the funds that we're spending over to man this field? Because I couldn't find it in the budget anywhere, so are we just, you know, like you said, going at it a little bit of time as we can, or is it actually in the budget, you know?
It's in the budget. My understanding, as far as the overall salaries budgeted for the year.
The salary of
The workers that are there.
out there. What about the actual, everything that we're buying out there, the supplies?
A lot of the stuff we're buying out there is covered under the grant, is my understanding. Unfortunately, we have to buy it to be reimbursed for it, correct, Paul?
Yes, but none of the relocation of the fields or stuff.
It's costing any money whatsoever, except for the labor.
Just to add one more thing, right now, we do have the lights. We purchased the lights. So we have you know, we'd be reimbursed for the lights. And the next thing is going to be the concession stand, which right now we're getting bids on that right now, as far as
Yeah, and 20,000 of that comes from the grant money. And then we have to build the refreshment stand. The 20,000 we get in the grant is for bathrooms.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is William Hassick. I live at 100 Butter Road, which is not far from the curve on Butter Road where the large property has been cleared. Obviously, since it is low-lying land where a lot of water collects, something is going to have to be done about that by the owner before whatever improvement is made to that property. I simply want to ask that there be diligent oversight to see that if there is any further filling of the land by crushed stone or dirt or whatever to change the elevation or contour of the land, that it be done in such a manner that it not adversely affect any neighboring or adjacent properties. If there is any fill of that land, the water is going to flow elsewhere, and I want you to see that any flow of surface water is not going to either collect or be diverted to adjacent or neighboring properties.
Mr. Hesse, I also sit on the planning board, along with Paul. Their application was tabled due to the fact that we didn't like what they presented to us, as well as additional information that we wanted to see, and a lot of it had to do with the drainage, reclamation of the areas to remove the trees with vegetation. So they have to go back and do a complete redraw on this and come back to the board with it again. And what I would like to do is, invite you to that meeting, because that's the proper place for you to address it. It goes before the planning board. And all your concerns will definitely be taken It's the same concerns that was expressed at the meeting and that the entire board felt had to be addressed.
All right, will I be informed of that meeting?
Probably not, because we don't send notices.
I don't know what type of application it is, Paul. Is it a site plan?
Yeah, it's a site plan before the planning board.
So there should be public notice and notice within 200 feet?
There's already been public notice to the.
So it's
property.
announced again?
It was announced at
Probably
the meeting that it's gonna be at the next, month's planning board meeting, third Thursday of the month. As long as they get their plans in 10 days prior to it.
So that means it'll be the third Thursday of April in this room, that evening, 7 o'clock, is that what?
7:30.
7:30.
Yeah. And I would
They already
suggest,
noticed and they announced at the prior meeting that they're gonna continue it to that meeting, that's why they don't have to send you another notice.
Mr. Hess, I would call the zoning officer, talk to Shelley Lee, the zoning officer, maybe the week before, and she'll let you know if it's on the agenda or if it's not.
Okay.
Okay?
I also just wanted to question whether that land was or is classed as protected wetlands under any kind of state or local law.
It is, most of the lot is freshwater wetlands. However, they received a permit from the state of New Jersey to fill probably 3/4 of the lot. So they had permission from the DEP to fill the wetlands for what they're doing. They didn't have permission to clear some of the tree buffers that were on the, I'll say, the Route 9 side and on the other side, some, but they did have permission to fill the wetlands.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, the next planning board meeting is on April 16th.
What is the date?
April 16th, sir.
April 16th,
At 7:30 PM.
Kevin Grubb, I reside at 216 Route 50 in Greenfield. A couple of weeks ago, I attended a meeting and raised similar questions that Mr. DeSalvo did about Amanda's Field. And Mr. Barr, you were supposed to come up with an idea of numbers of money being spent down Amanda's Field towards labor, towards equipment, towards things of that nature.
Well, as we already spoke about, the equipment that's being installed out there is included in the grant.
No, I'm talking about the equipment being used, that's township equipment.
So you're talking about
trucks, tractors,
front end loaders and everything?
Yes.
Well, I don't have those figures for you, but I do have the amount of man hours that we have had out there. And as of January to March, we have spent 727 man hours out there. Not necessarily were they all put towards the baseball fields. It's put towards the entire complex. But as far as our records are concerned, that's how many man hours that we put out there.
Roughly, how much is that in salary?
You would say it's $17,854.
That's what's been spent on just the salary of the individuals working.
That's in man hours and what it would cost per, with the amount of hours.
Now, is that just recreation labor that you're calculating, or is that?
We don't have any recreation department. Everybody works for Public Works, and that is the amount of hours that Public Work employees have put out there.
But you have a recreation budget?
No, we don't. Well, we have a recreation budget for a line budget, but there is no such thing as a recreation department.
Okay, but so my question is, if there's no recreation department, no funds toward labor comes out of the recreation budget?
Comes out of Public Works.
Towards works that they're doing. If the individuals are doing work at Amanda's Field and all that stuff, it doesn't come out of the recreation budget? It just, everything comes out of Public Works budget?
Everything comes out of Public Works.
There's a
yes.
separate budget for sports and recreation programs that is not field maintenance or field construction. All of that was merged into Public Works a number of years ago. So Public Works handles all those type of facilities.
So the Public Works budget was increased because the departments merged?
No, in fact, that merger saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay, so so you merged it and you just basically did away with that budget that you had, then is what you're telling me?
No, it merged. When something merged.
Well, if it saved you
yeah,
money.
Because positions were saved, duplicated positions were eliminated. It was attrition. I don't have the numbers. Barb could probably get you the numbers if you needed it. But that was why, one of the primary reasons the Township Committee at the time decided to do that.
You say positions were saved. What do you mean by that? Because there seemed, to me, I believe there's the same number.
There's no superintendent.
I'm sorry, I was speaking. To me, I believe the same amount of employees are still employed at the township from both departments. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
at least 12 less employees, at least 12, I'm not sure the exact number, but at least 12 less employees when we had, now than when we had two departments.
Now, are you counting people that have retired or that were part-time employees, or are you talking about full-time employees that you
I have to
laid
get
off?
you an accounting of that. I don't have the numbers, but most of those are full-time positions. My understanding is at least 12 full-time positions. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I don't have the figures in front of me
So-
right now.
But these could be, the numbers you're giving me, these could be people
No
that
one was laid
would
off.
retire. Nobody was laid off.
Nobody's laid off.
Okay, that was what I was asking you. So you're giving me figures of maybe either part-time employees that aren't here anymore
No.
or people that retired.
My understanding, the number of positions, whatever that number is, are full-time positions.
Okay, so then how are you saving, so you're just saying because they're gone, they're retired and everything, now you're saving the money? You didn't fill a new position and didn't hire any new employees since then?
It's called attrition. When they merged it, there was a couple large retirements. Brenda retired, she was a superintendent, and when they merged it, through attrition, through retirements, through other people leaving for various reasons, leaving their jobs, they didn't need to rehire because they merged the departments.
Right, I understand that, but were there any new employees hired from that point on?
No,
None, no laborers, no anybody?
no, there hasn't been a new employee in that department in years.
Well, there's no department, you said that they're merged.
In either a recreation worker or a public works worker, there hasn't been a new employee in a number of years.
Okay, so you've hired no new employees in a number of years, that's what you're saying?
I don't know how many times I can answer that question.
I'm just trying to get a full
Yes.
understanding and be clear. All right, thank you, that's all I wanted to know. You mentioned the conduit, the light conduit, when was that put in?
I couldn't even tell you, Kev, it was before I was here.
So it was way back years ago when they originally created the field?
When they first started putting the fields in.
Okay, so now they're taking it out again and
That's
redoing
it.
it because that
We-
was put in wrong as
We
well?
we underpinned as much as we could and saved as much as we could. But unfortunately, it has to meet a 36-inch depth.
Right.
I don't
So-
know who, what, why, or where, and, it had to be fixed.
You
It's
don't
a
know who
safety
was in
issue and it's a
charge?
code issue.
You don't know who was in charge of overseeing the project of, who said, okay, yeah, that's where it belongs and that's it, or?
Nope, and that's why right now it's, I'm pretty much ramrodding it, my name's on it, and everything goes through me and through Dwayne, Chris, and Roy.
Okay. The other question I have for you is totally separate. You guys are discussing this shredder that you're buying, it's like $19-some thousand roughly, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
What are you shredding with this, just so I have a full understanding?
That's what we use for public.
The public comes over to Public Works with sensitive documents that they want to shred, which is a public service we provide. And all the public, and all the information that we have here in Town Hall needs to be shredded.
Okay, now when the public brings their stuff in there, do they have a drop-off? How does it work? Do they just come in and bring it to you and say, here, shred this, or is there a drop-off?
I believe we have days that are set up in which they receive shredding documents.
Okay. The people that are shredding the documents, are they bonded?
I have no knowledge.
So you randomly have random employees just shredding documents that you don't know if they're bonded or not, or if there's any kind of security background or anything with these individuals that are handling people's personal paperwork, documents?
The documents are not left there.
They're shredded in front of the.
The residents
shredded right in
are
front of the
there with
person.
the Public Works
Okay.
employee and they're shredded.
But are the individual employees required to be bonded? Do we know that?
No,
Or not?
no.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Russ Morano, 5 Red Oak Drive. Couple simple questions. We just had a reroute. Did you ever get the new tax rate yet? Trying to figure out what the new tax bill is going to be.
We don't have
Kinda
it
rough.
officially, the bills, I'm told the bills will go out in June. We don't have it officially, you might be able to call the county to get an estimate, but we don't have it.
It's kind of tough because they give you a time period that you can.
Well, for the appeal, you mean? Russ?
Yeah,
But the appeal is based on your value. So
Right.
regardless of what the rate is, if your value is too high, you should appeal. If your value is too low, you don't want to appeal to raise it.
You should have received the letter, sir.
The other thing I had is in regard to this gentleman's question about the board's health insurance. If anybody does not take it, are you giving them any payment in lieu of not taking it?
No.
They don't?
No.
All right.
No, I received no compensation. I'm one of the people that didn't take it.
I'm sorry, gentlemen, you got this thing till, my hearing isn't that good anymore.
I said, I'm one of the people that didn't take it, okay? I did not receive any compensation for it.
Now, the reason I asked that question, because the school board does.
Yeah.
They pay the other way around. And I just wanted to see if it did the same thing here.
There's very few places that do that anymore.
Oh, that's good to hear. The other thing was, a couple of months ago, Ted asked a question for me. You had your budget meetings here, and I had asked Ted to ask a question for me because I had to leave. Is why can they not also be televised through the host situation? The mayor, I looked at the video, and basically he's saying, well, it's just a basic thing. Maybe later on we'll do it, but it's a public issue. People like to be able to see it. I like to see how people discuss issues. The videos, I've watched the last few meetings you've had through the videos. I'd like to learn that way. I like to, when I go to vote for somebody, I want to see how they react to different questions and how they present themselves, so on and so forth. I'd like to see those budget meetings. I believe they should be. The only thing that should not be here, public, is your private meetings, the executive meetings. But everything else should be video. And I'd like you guys to think it over and bring it out. Okay?
We'll definitely discuss it.
Is there anybody who would object to it?
No, wouldn't object at all.
No.
Maybe you can make a resolution to have it? Like now?
No. We'd have to get facts and figures.
Gotta wait for the mayor?
No. We'd have to study it. You'd have to look at the facts and figures and how could we do it?
And we're gonna have to see if it's gonna be doable for Ed here. And the cost.
There is a cost because that fine gentleman in the hat over there has to be paid to come in. So there is a budget issue when they decide that.
We'll take your recommation into
Something to think
consideration.
about. I really think it's a public thing. There are people that can't make it here. It would be very beneficial to them.
I agree with you.
The other thing I have is this. Who is the school board liaison from this board?
We don't have one.
Their meetings are the
The
same.
biggest part of our taxes is that school board. I really believe, and there was before, there should be, somebody from here should be attending those meetings and should be a liaison between the two. Who represents us from this board?
We all do. You do, I do.
Do you attend the meetings
We all
over
do.
there? You know, I also go on other townships' videos where they have some cases, the whole board goes to their meetings. The whole council does. But a lot of money is spent there. This to me is the minimum one. The money is over there.
That's right.
We agree with you.
These guys should have something over there. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Natalie Neese, 759 Route 50, Petersburg. Tonight, I'd like to bring to attention that on March 10th, I made an OPA request. It was number 19, 2015, to review zoning and construction office files. And on 3/12/2015, I reviewed the file in the construction office with Barbara Young and Paul Dietrich. Paul said there was no zoning permit record in the file, and Barbara Young said no zoning office files exist. It's 20 days later today since I made that first request, and today Ed Kenny provided the zoning permit record. And I'd like to know why Paul Dietrich, Shelley, and Barbara Young are giving me erroneous information.
Mr. Kenny provided you with a construction office file to review. It was not a zoning office file. And you did review it within a 7-day time period, and that did answer my requirements as far as OPRA goes.
I said that I made that request on March 10th, and today was March 30th.
You reviewed it on March 12th.
But there was no zoning permit in the file. And at that time, Paul Dietrich said.
It was a
there
construction office file that you were reviewing.
I
not a
requested
zoning
to see the
office.
zoning files and the construction office files. That's
So on that
exactly
day,
what
you
my
reviewed a
oversight.
construction office file. When asked of the zoning office whether or not there was anything in the planning and zoning office file, my response that I received from Ms. Lee was that there was no information in the file pertaining to the years that you requested.
But today I received it.
That's a different office,
No,
Natalie,
it's
so
a
you
different
understand, that's a construction office. The construction office is for building permits and whatnot. The zoning and planning is for zoning or planning board issues. So apparently, there was no file from zoning and planning, but there was a file from construction office. That's
Well,
why,
to be clear, Mr. Young, my open request asked to review the zoning files and also the construction office files.
For specific
And they
years.
told me there were none.
For specific
today-
years, Ms. Neese.
I'm sorry?
You requested zoning files for specific years. Those specific years that you requested, there was no information.
And
But I
now-
got it today, within the same year.
You received it from the construction official, from the construction office, not from the zoning office.
Well, then somehow you're passing around the records because it was the zoning permit, which is exactly what I was looking for. And furthermore, I went back to the record because there was a record document in there on the 12th that had a note on it by Ed Kenny, and I wanted a copy of it, and I asked to speak with Ed Kenny about it, and when I met with Ed Kenny today, the document with the note on it was removed from the file.
And as I explained to you when you came to my office, without seeing the document, I don't know what document you're speaking about, but there are documents from time to time, even in my own files, I might have a Post-it note on something. That is my work product. That is not a part of the actual file.
But yet, you know,
Without seeing the document, I don't know if it was work product. That may not be part of the actual file.
but on the 12th, you were standing right over my shoulder and looked at it and gave me the yellow tabs to tag it to make it.
On the 12th, we looked at the entire file. Without seeing the document that you're speaking of, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking, what the document is.
Do you have anything else, Natalie?
Yeah, I'd like to know, Barbara, why you have two open requests with the same tracking number.
One you will notice says 25, 2014, and the other one says 25A, 2014, and that was just because you had submitted, if I recall correctly, 3 OPRA requests within a matter of, I would say, 5 minutes.
Well, I would just say for the record then that the one tracking record was dated on March the 16th and received on the 16th, and the other one was dated on March 18th.
And you had
and
a
received
couple
on the
other ones on the
18th,
18th
and both of
as
them
well.
were in 2015. And I have not.
I don't know
yet-
without seeing the documents.
Well, I just say to date, I haven't been responded to with regard.
And you have been. You were in my office today, and you reviewed all the documents requested.
Well, I'm just bringing to attention that when I went home with the papers, I went over the tracking numbers, and you have 2 documents, 2 OPRA requests that have the same tracking number. And one was dated and received on March the 16th, and one was dated and received on
That
March
tracking
18th.
number is for my purpose only. That is for my record keeping.
Do you have any other questions, Natalie, for Township Committee?
At the last meeting, I asked what the, with regard to the liability insurance policy, what is your insurance aggregate? And Mayor Palumbo said that he'd get back to me, or you all would get it and give it to me.
Remember the question?
Anybody recall that request?
I don't recall.
There was a request, but I think the answer was they don't have that information. You'd have to perhaps talk to either the financial office or some other office. It's not something that they would have at their fingertips.
I think that Mr. Palumbo, we went back with Terry, who was here, and she couldn't answer it. But Mr. Palumbo said that I needed to make the request to the board, and the board would get me the information.
You could
So I
ask for
turned-
an Oprah request on that if you wanted, or you could contact the CFO's office. But that's not information that the Township Committee has at its disposal.
I would recommend that you make an Oprah request, Natalie.
I'm sorry?
I recommend that you make an Oprah request to get that information.
And just a clarification, when you were talking about how much the committee members got paid, and you said the mayor got so much extra, what was that amount again?
$5,000 additional.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing that nobody else wants to come up for public comment, make a motion for closed session.
Second.
Thank you very much.
I hereby move that a resolution be incorporated into the minutes authorizing the Township Committee to enter into an executive session for the following matters pursuant to the Open Public Records Act. The matters are contract negotiation for tax map maintenance, Norman Briggs Legal Special Service Counsel, municipal engineer, shared services agreement with Dennis Township, litigation for tax appeals, safety and security, and personnel.
Please keep the noise
I also
down.
include in my motion the estimated time and circumstances under which discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public as follows. A, it is anticipated that the matters discussed in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the determination of the Township Committee that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. With respect to employment and personnel matters, such discussions will be made public if and when formal action is taken or when the individuals involved consent that it can be made public. With respect to contract negotiations, such matters will be made public when negotiations have ceased and there is no longer a reason for confidentiality. With respect to litigation matters, such discussions will be made public when litigation is complete and the applicable appeal period has expired. Can I have a second?
Second?
Mr.
Call
Barr?
roll? Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?